Scott, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about SawStop?
Very good. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Audette. Like I said, I'm a regional sales manager with SawStop. Been with the company about 3 years. And this is kind of unique for me as well. We usually do these face-to-face and usually have a big group of people around our table. And we like to do the hot dog demo, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. But more importantly, today we're going to talk a little bit about that at the onset of this presentation, because that's what makes us famous, what drives us. But then we're going to talk a little bit about, the saws, the offerings we have. We have 4 different offerings that we have in our lineup. We don't typically get into that too much, so we'll just topically go through, talk a little bit about each one of the saws that we carry and some of the features and benefits of those saws. And if you have questions, certainly you can ask them. I will open it up at the end to take questions when we complete, but sometimes it's topical and you want to ask right away. So we'll launch into it. I want to thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. So when we start this out, why did we develop SawStop? What's it all about? The determining factor behind that back in the day when Dr. Gass and his team decided to go this route was they were developing a saw that was not only one of the best saws on the market, but also kept you safe from blade contact injuries. What a lot of people don't realize is how often these injuries do take place. We talk about it quite frequently. In this country, there's a table saw accident or a blade contact injury every 9 minutes. And as you can see on the screen, 10 of those result in amputations, and that's every single day. So it's a real problem, and it's a problem that we have addressed with our SawStop braking system. The results of these blade contact injuries are catastrophic in a lot of ways. The pain and trauma, people loss of income, and in the woodworking industry, it's a shrinking talent pool. So anytime we lose somebody from the industry, it's hard to replace that talent. Long recovery times, societal costs, the reattachment doesn't always go well. Altered work processes for a lot of these individuals that do go back to their work. And then, I always think to myself, do I want to step back up to the same machine that I lost 3 fingers to, 6 months prior? So these are a lot of the things we'd like you to consider when you're looking at getting a SawStop table saw. We prevent these injuries from happening, and the user experience on a SawStop is second to none. And then briefly, if you aren't familiar, we'll just run through how that braking system works. Basically, we put a small electrical charge in the blade from the brake, and that signal changes on contact. So when you interrupt that signal between the brake and the blade, that's what actually causes that reaction. And that activation happens in 5 milliseconds. So put that in perspective. When you interrupt that signal, that brake cartridge slams into that spinning blade, it stops that blade, it drops it below the deck of the table, and it cuts power to that saw. And again, that all happens in 5 milliseconds. Airbag in a car, it takes 50 milliseconds for that to deploy. So we're 50 times faster, or I should say we're 10 times faster than what happens with a airbag in a car. And then after the activation, it's a simple change out. You replace that brake and that blade. And then in less than 5 minutes, you're back to work getting those jobs done that you wanted to get done. No muss, no fuss. Typically, it's just a Band-Aid injury, and you're good to go. So that's kind of the process of how it works. It detects contact with skin, stops the spinning blade, puts it below the table, and cuts power to the saw. And the reset, like I say, is easy.
Scott, I don't know if we've discussed this in person, but in the Loveland store, we had a skin contact, meaning, and he's actually listening in right now, so he's probably grimacing.
Oh,
but the manager of the store had contacted he accidentally touched the blade, and I came back from lunch one day, and one of the employees said, "You need to go in the classroom right now." And so I did, and I walked in there, and I'm going to say this, and maybe you're not going to like this part. There was a little more blood than your video show, meaning there was a few drops. Sure. But it was in no way, shape, or form did we have a workers' comp accident. Nobody had to go to a hospital. It was get a Band-Aid, put yourself back together. I will never forget that the response was, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. And I said, yes, you will, but not with money. So to all of you listening, he's paying for it right now. Because we keep that blade up front and we show it to all kinds of people and recount that story to a whole lot of people. So it is, he's living testament that actually does work. To the rest of us, I can account that I'm the idiot who's accidentally put aluminum into it and, set it off, and then some 4-letter words leave your mouth when you do that. But, oh well, you live, you learn.
Don't feel bad. You're not the only one. What I would mention is, when we have these saves, I mean, we literally have thousands and thousands of pictures at our corporate offices, and people send them in and they send in the thank yous and whatnot. Something to remember, if you do unfortunately have an activation and it was a finger save, you can certainly send that in. There's a process that you can follow online, and we do a quick diagnostic on that brake cartridge. And if it turns out it was a finger save, we send you a new brake cartridge. So it's a win-win if you have a finger save. You got your finger, and we get to know we saved a finger, and we also get to send you another brake cartridge. Well, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about these saws in general. So the Jobsite saw. This is our portable saw. It's lightweight and it's portable, as I mentioned. It's about 108 pounds. Well, the new iteration is 113 pounds. The old iteration, the MCA, was 108 pounds. The time-saving adjustability that we mentioned, what that typically it talks to is the height and bevel adjustments that you allow to get into quickly. So we have a bevel adjustment that takes it from 0 to 45. We also have a micro adjust that you can see up in the upper right-hand corner of that saw that lets you dial those angles in even tighter. But the single turn elevation is the real winner here. When you compare that to some of our competition, you're turning that little wheel 25 to 30 times to get a blade elevation or height elevation. With ours, it's a single turn, so it's really a unique system in the marketplace. Ergonomic controls, that ErgoLock fence, in the paddle and switch that are easy to see. You can hit them with your knee. They're very large. They're very obvious. We feel that this particular Jobsite saw is one of the best built and one of the best performing portable saws there is on the market. And then to add to that, the fact that you simply have a safety system speaks volumes about what we were able to accomplish with this. Now some of you may or some of you may not know that we had an original iteration called the Jobsite MCA. That was the original saw that we came out with. These are very similar in design. Some of the upgrades to this particular saw now is it's a little deeper on the table. It's 24.5 inches in depth. So it's about 2.5 inches deeper than the previous table. So you have more room in front of the blade, which allows you to do, more sheet good or larger cuts, I should say. The blade guard itself went from a standard micro blade guard to what we call a dust collection blade guard. So now on this particular saw, you have, top of table dust collection as well as the 2.5 inch port that comes out the back. We have what we call a high-low fence. And really, I've been around, I've seen a lot of people. Some people don't take advantage of that we'll call it the low fence, but it is a safety feature that allows you to, be a little bit safer as you get closer to the blade when you're performing, tight cuts. So the high-low fence is an upgrade along with that dust collection blade guard. The new style, this Jobsite Pro, is now 113 pounds. And some of that has to do with, it's a little bit bigger than it was before. Still has a single turn elevation as the previous iteration, and it's just what we like to think is a really nice upgrades when we went to the dust collection, the high-low fence, and of course that added space in the front of the blade, so it's gives you a little bit more room, so you can do a little bit more with that saw. That deeper table is a really nice feature for us.
Hey, Scott,
yeah,
we actually have a question, and we've done a couple of these so far, and we've always run a little bit short, but I figured let's try this time and see how this goes. Grandpa, I'll let you go ahead and ask your question. Let's see how this goes. You should be unmuted, I think.
Did you scroll down and find him and unmute him, or?
Yeah, he seems to be unmuted, but if that's not the case, Grandpa, if you do have a question and you'd like to type it into the chat window. I'll be happy to ask on your behalf. Or if you do have something to ask, please just let me know and we'll go forward with that. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, Scott.
No, that's not a problem. Standard 10-inch blade with the Jobsite Pro, like all the other saws that we carry. There's really no change there. It does take an 8-inch dado stack. Max depth of cut on the Jobsite saw, like our other saws, is at 0, it's 3 1/8, and when you get out to the 45, you're down to 2 1/8. So it's a great little saw. It's a saw that if you're doing a lot of moving around on a job site, or you need portability or mobility, this is the way you want to go. Next up in our product offering is going to be our contractor saw. And I like to tell people this is what a table saw most people recognize out of the gate. This is what I remember in my grandfather's shop and in my dad's garage. The open stance. This is, to me, what I always thought of when I thought about a table saw. Some of the subtle differences with this saw, and most people probably don't realize this, but this is our most configurable saw. So what I mean is this will take more accessory and options than any one of our saws. So you can dress this up 170 different ways. And I don't know who at SawStop ended up having to do all that, but that's the number we landed on. You can have 170 different configurations for this saw. So I don't know if that's ever going to show up on a test, but I've got it licked if it does. This is one of our saws that has a very nice price point for entry level, and you're going to get a little bit more, stability and general stability with this saw. The contractor saw at its smallest with the 30-inch fence is about 245 pounds. So when you compare that to the 113 pounds of the Jobsite Pro, you can see why you'll have a little bit more stability for this particular saw. A lot of versatility for this saw. It's the type of saw that, like our other saws we're going to talk about, you have 3 fence choices with this and a 1 3/4 horsepower motor. So you can do a 30-inch, a 36-inch, or a 52-inch fence with this. This does have the ability to put an integrated mobile base on it, and we will talk about the mobile bases towards the end. It has a 4.5-inch dust port coming out the back. Truth in advertising, because of that open profile at the bottom, dust collection isn't quite to the level that you see with our cabinet saws, but in its class, it has very good dust collection. And again, as I mentioned, 3 different configurations for a fence. So when you're talking about a quality saw for a price point, the contractor saw does check all the boxes.
So there's a question that Phil asked, and
Okay.
I think it's probably the best question for woodworkers because it's the distinction between the job site saw and the contractor saw, in my opinion, and the decision point. He says he wants the mobility to be able to help with some improvements, and I guess that means some type of home improvements, but he wants to be able to build some furniture out of 3/4 to 1-inch hardwood. Will the job site saw do both? I'm going to let you answer, and forgive me, but I'm going to provide my 2 cents in there as well. So if his priorities are a little bit of both, some home improvements and some furniture building, what would you choose?
Yeah, for me, it's hard to have portability with the contractor saw. So, I mean, I'm going to lean that way, and I'm going to say the job site saw will be able to do most of what you're looking to do. Depending on the type of furniture you're talking about, there might be some limitations in terms of rip capacity. At 1.5 horses, that job site saw is more than powerful enough. So, I mean, I think the job site saw would check the boxes, using that term again. But not knowing what type of furniture or how big you're talking, I'm a little challenged, but I'll lean towards the job site saw.
Okay. I would say you need to make a little bit of a decision as to exactly where your priorities lay there, because I think the job site saw can fulfill all those, and we do sell quite a few of them to folks who need that portability and still want to build some furniture, because it certainly has the power to be able to do those things. If there is a weakness of the job site saw, that's probably not the right way to word it. If there is a strength that the contractor saw has over it, it's 2 things. It's that cast iron top and the fences that are available for it. Because in my opinion, the fence is the most important part of a woodworking saw, because when you can dial in the fence on the woodworking saw, the fences that are available for the contractor saw in particular, you can dial them in once and never come back to them for 5 years. I probably haven't touched the fence on my saw in 8 years, and it's still within a thousandth of an inch. Perfect. So you're not going to have quite the precision that you would out of the fence on the job site saw, but you're still going to have a very good, very capable saw. And I can tell you, I've used literally every one of the saws in the lineup, and I think all of them are great. I built the shop that I'm sitting in with the contractor saw. I took it home and used it. It does have mobile bases available for it so that you can roll it around pretty easily. Whereas the job site saw, I actually bought one of those for my dad, and he uses it on his farm. So I think it's a great saw. The other point that I was talking about is the contractor saw has a cast iron top, so things like magnetic feather boards work on it, whereas the job site saw, the top is, I believe it's aluminum. It may be another alloy.
It's powder coated aluminum, yeah.
Okay, so there is a bit of a benefit in my opinion to the cast iron, but Phil, it's a decision point. Do I think that you can do everything you want to with the job site saw? Yes, I think it's a very good saw. But if your priorities lie towards woodworking in particular, I'd go with the contractor saw. If your priorities go towards
Portability,
needing portability, then I'd go towards the job site saw.
yeah. The only other caveat to that is when people talk to me about portability and using it in their homes, I always tend to err on the side that if you're going to be in your house using a saw, I definitely in job site, just it's a cleaner saw, it's a quieter saw. But there's so many other functions that the contractor saw allows you to do that the job site saw doesn't. So you just have more flexibility with the contractor saw. It's a true table saw. Price point is great. Performance is outstanding. I mean, you can add cast iron to it and make it a complete cast iron top. If price point's not an issue, you certainly can dress up that contractor saw, and it'll serve you well for many, 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 many years. So thanks for the question. The next one in the lineup is our professional cabinet saw, and this one is probably, and Wayne, you correct me if I'm wrong, but this is probably one of the bigger movers for Woodcraft stores. We sell a lot of professional cabinet saws, and it just lends itself to, the space we're talking. It's hobbyists and woodworkers. That tends to be the biggest segment of people that are buying this particular saw. You can have some small shop professionals that'll buy this, 1 and 2 man shops, but basically our do-it-yourselfers, our home hobbyists, these are the people that go to the professional cabinet saw. And the reason being is it's a fabulous, fabulous saw. It's an award-winning design, and I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form to be demeaning to other products out there, but it is one of the best built saws that is on the market. Cast iron table and wings, integrated industrial mobile options for it. The motor is cabinet mounted, and it's a 3 horsepower. Single phase on this is the only way you can go. So it's a single phase, either 1 3/4 horse or 3 horsepower. On the 1 3/4 horse, it comes standard with the micro blade guard. When you bump, you can add a dust collection blade guard if you'd like to that 1 3/4 horse. That is available, but it's an option. It comes standard with the dust collection blade guard when you get into that 3 horse. As the contractor saw, I mentioned, it has the 30-inch premium or the 36 and the 52-inch T-glide fences that are available with it. This has 2 mobile base options. And again, we'll talk about mobile bases when we get a little farther in, but you can go with either an integrated or an industrial. And I will explain the difference in those when we get to those locations. And then obviously this particular saw, you can dress it up with many of the options that we'll look at later. But in terms of The user experience on this is second to none. The ability to, purchase this saw and install it or build it at your home. The installation on this particular saw is really quite easy. One of the things I encourage people to do is head out to some of those user groups online. I mean, I work for the company. People are trying to sell you a product. It's great having the internet to go out and do some research. And I think you'll find if you go out and look at the user groups and read up on some of the reviews for SawStop, specifically this professional cabinet saw, you're going to come away understanding that what we're telling you is in truth fact. It's a great saw. It's a great user experience. And again, it's a safe saw.
One of the things that I really like about the professional saw as well as the industrial saw, and I don't know that this is highlighted very much in any of the marketing materials, is the ability to dial in the top parallel to the blade is absolutely the neatest method I've ever seen. Meaning, on every other saw that I'm aware of, you have 4 bolts that hold the top to the saw. And literally in, let's say, a competitor's manual, it says to loosen the 4 bolts and to hit a corner with a rubber mallet until you get the adjustment you want. Well, I don't know about you folks, but a rubber not something that I consider to be a tool of finesse. On the SawStop, you literally you adjust these tiny little jack screws in the back, pivoting the top around the blade, and you can dial it in to absolutely perfect. So if you want that top to be 0 thousandths out, you can have that top be absolutely perfect. So the professional cabinet saws, the PCS and the industrial, are innovative in the way they're built. And the other thing that is absolutely wonderful is the experience of putting together a SawStop, and this goes for all of the SawStops, is dramatically different than it is for any of the competitors. We often get phone calls as retailers of, I'm having trouble putting together such and such a tool because the manual is poopy. You never get that for a SawStop manual. It is very similar to, and take this as I mean this in the best possible way. It's like assembling patio furniture. You'll get a blister pack of bolts and it says, step 1, punch out the bolts for step 1. It's not a giant bag of things where you don't know exactly what bolt. You can't put the wrong bolt in the wrong place. It is the most pleasant experience you'll have assembling a tool.
We'll read about that out of the user groups. It's they're blister packed, they're color coordinated, they're numbered. I mean, it's I put one together, so there you go. I mean, it's a pretty slick deal, that's for sure. And now Wayne, you were talking about zeroing the blade out with the miter slot, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I've been at many shows where people have come up to me and just said, wow, I couldn't believe how easy that was compared to, the one I had before. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point. All right, moving on. So the ICS that you saw in the background at Wayne's woodshop there before we started, this was the original iteration. This was the flagship of the line. This is what we first launched back in 99, 2000. So this is the biggest saw that we offer in our lineup. And it's the reason we call it industrial is that's typically where these saws land. But you do have many hobbyists and do-it-yourselfers that just want this big saw. And, some significant differences. The depth on this for the table is 30 inches. We're on the PCS, it was 27. With the industrial, you're just going to get bigger hand wheels. You get larger motor access points, and you have a couple of access doors to this, along with the lockout tagout that you can see there on the left side. It is available in single and 3-phase. So this one up to 7.5 horse, which is our largest motor option. So if you're looking for more power, if you need a bigger saw, this is certainly the one you're going to go to. It is by far, when you dress it up with a 52-inch and you go with a 52-inch T-glide fence, you're getting close to 700 pounds of saw. So it's the epitome of stability and performance. It's continuous duty motors, totally enclosed, fan cool. They can run all day, every day if that's what you need. And that's kind of the design for this saw. Heavy duty cycle environments, like I mentioned, it's the cast on it is thicker and deeper than the PCS. This obviously has an industrial mobile base that you can put to it if you need to have mobility for this particular saw. Just a large trunnions for this saw. There's nothing light duty about this particular saw. This is one of the biggest, baddest saws there is on the market, and it's not for everybody, but it's available if you need it. And like I say, a lot of people that go with this are people that are looking for 3-phase power options, because on all of our saws, except for this one, they're all single phase. So this is the only 3-phase saw that we offer in our line. I touched on these. So here's a couple of our mobility options. We have a couple of them. And what you're looking at is going to be two mobile bases. There's an integrated, and then there's the industrial. So the integrated, the difference between the integrated and say the industrial is one is hydraulic driven, and one is basically with a spring. So those are the significant differences between the two. The integrated mobile base can lift about 450 pounds. So when you're looking at buying a saw, and you may be adding things to it down the line, like a router or something of that nature, you basically get to a point where that integrated mobile base wouldn't work. The industrial mobile base is, on the integrated, I should mention, is 2 fixed wheels and then 2 360 wheels. So when you're moving that integrated mobile base around, kind of think about parallel parking, because that's kind of how it works. With the industrial mobile base, it's 4 casters that are all independent, so you could actually turn your saw basically in a full circle on a dime. 1,000-pound capacity with that particular lift. So it's just a better built, and it has a heavier rating in terms of what it can lift.
Hey Scott, I can show that one real quick.
Oh, okay, that'd be cool.
Literally, it's sitting right here. So on the industrial one, you have a pump action. Pump it with your feet. I don't know if you guys can tell, but behind my table saw is my router table. I don't have very much space to the left of my table saw, so I could not use another type of mobile base to move it that way. So in my case, I literally pull it my way if I'm going to sweep behind it and clean it out. Then whenever I'm done, just like he said, I push it back into position, I hit the lower, and it drops back into the exact position. So those 4 independent spinning wheels, I guess this is a weird analogy, but it's kind of like the carts at IKEA versus the carts at the supermarket.
Oh, that was a good one. And I will say this: mobile bases, they are slick. So if it's a situation where you're going to want to move it around, and I tell you, the difference between them is about $100. So I mean, to me, I'm always letting people know that industrial is just a really slick system. When we talk about dust collection, I'm sure a lot of you know, wood's considered a carcinogen and has been since the mid '80s. And a lot of the materials that are in our wood nowadays pose a higher risk for, lung cancer and nasal issues and things like that. So when we're talking dust collection for our saws, we have 2 styles that are available to you. And most of our saw, both our PCS and ICS have the capability of being 99% efficient when it comes to dust collection. The difference between the two, the floating overarm dust collection, or basically our overarm dust collection, is really quite simple. The overarm dust collection is actually attached to the tabletop through the riving knife, whereas the floating overarm dust collection, that one sits above the table, so you can actually move that one out of the way. So I tell people, when you're considering dust collection, a lot of it has to do with your process and what you're going to be doing. The big 4-inch tube on the swinging tube and that adjustable blade guard really set up nice for when people are doing a lot of full board ripping and things like that, where they got to get it out of the way quickly. The standard overarm dust collection, again, it's attached to the table by the riving knife. They both work extremely well. Just one is a little bit easier to get out of the way than the other one. But they both protect your respiratory. They both work extremely well. The 4-inch tube is on the floating overarm dust collection, and the standard overarm dust collection is a 2.5. Is an 1.5 inch diameter dust tube. So again, they both work well. It's just kind of what your process is and what's going to work best for the type of woodworking you're going to do. But we offer the two styles. Do you even have dust collection on yours, Wayne? I couldn't tell from here. Sliding tables. We have two that we offer. There's the SA48 and the SA70. Difference between these two is really more of again, a choice of having a dedicated table that mimics a sliding table that allow you to do full sheet good work. If you put an SA70 under your saw, you're not going to be moving it. It's dedicated. It's staying there. It's going nowhere. Whereas the SA48, which is a real popular ad for us, small panels, repetitive type motions, things that you need that SA48 come in really handy. The two options are really nice, but by far we sell more of the SA48 than we do the SA70. The SA70, like I say, it's for big sheet ripping, and it pretty much dedicates wherever you put your saw. That's kind of where it's going to stay. But we have the two that we offer. I think at your store you have SA48s on display, don't you, Wayne?
The SA48s, which are the big table. I do not have those on display.
Okay, the SA70s are the big one. The SA48 is the smaller one.
I don't have those. Denver may, but unfortunately, I don't have either one of them any longer.
It's just that SA48 is for easy, repeatable, accurate results. It's really simple to adjust, or I should say, add to our saw. We're pre-drilled for that. It's an easy install. Depth of that is 47.25 for what you want to be cutting. You got a couple of flip stops on that SA48. It's a beautiful little sliding table. It's a nice ad. And then the SA70, like I say, that's basically full sheet good. If you're going to be doing a lot of ripping, it would make sense, but for the most part, it's not a big mover for us, if I'm being completely honest. And the last thing we could talk about is router tables. We came out with the router table many years ago. I won't say many. What, about 10 years ago, Wayne? Maybe 8.
You guys?
Yeah, maybe 8 years. It came out before my time. That's kind of where I was going with this. We have three that we offer 3 different styles. We have a freestanding router table. We also have a bench top, and then we have the inline, which I'm kind of showing right here, which lends itself really nicely to have a full workstation. Your SA48 on an end and an inline router on one end, and maybe an outfeed table. So the idea behind the router, we don't make a router. We don't have a router. We just basically have the router itself, and then we have the 4-post lift that goes with it. So we have the router with all the router tables, I should say, with all the accessories that can go with router tables. And we also have the 4-post router lift, but we do not manufacture a router. And again, as I mentioned, we have a bench top, the standalone, and the inline. And I mean, there's not much more I can tell you about router tables other than that. They're built to the same exacting standards as our table saws. Beautifully finished cast iron, and you can dress them up as much as you want to, or you can be as plain Jane as you want to. But they're great options. They're great ads, and they fit nicely with the saw line.
They're great options for folks for whom space is their primary concern. In particular, a lot of folks who, they don't have full shops or dedicated shops, and they need to push the table saw out of the way in order to park the car, etc., into the garage. So having the table saw and the router table as one unit makes sense for those folks. And in that case, it's just a very nice compact unit to have, you know, this unit of table saw / router. But beyond that, I just got to say, when you outfit the 36-inch and you've got a sea of cast iron, there's no phenolic top anymore. You just have cast iron all the way flowing across. That's just dead sexy. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
there's no other way around it.
Yeah, it does look great. And it is a standard opening, by the way. I didn't mention that. It's a 9 1/4 by 11 3/4 standard opening. And that 4-post lift, we actually do sell quite a few of our lifts. It's smooth as butter. And I don't know if you actually have one of those, or if anybody in the listening audience has one, but I've had nothing but good things told to me by people that have our router and our lift, that how well it performs and how tight and how good of a router lift that thing is. So, you know, without getting too deep into it, routers, it's not for everybody, but we have it as an offering, and you can certainly talk to any of your Woodcraft sales associates, and they'll be able to, you know, enlighten you on all the good and bad, or all the good that our routers have to offer. I don't know if you want to take it back, Wayne, and open it up for questions, but that's kind of where we're at right now. I want to thank everyone for your time and your attention.
I will see if there are any additional questions at this point in time. But it does not seem that we're getting much else.
We had about 18 participants, it sounds like.
Yeah, Grandpa, I saw that you had popped up on video for a little while. So if you had any additional,
I think they're
questions.
muted. It looks like we're muted.
Well, yes, but if somebody raised their hand or had a chat question, I'd be happy to ask them.
Got it.
The